Namaskar friends, did you know that when we advise a medicine on phone to our patients, we have to follow a proper format of prescribing it? So many things like this I came across which were new to me when I was looking for guidelines which are there to practice teledentistry in India. In the present times of coronavirus, we all have already moved at triaging our patients telephonically before actually calling them at our clinics. But how often do we follow the government guidelines? However, our council, which is Dental Council of India, till date has not come out with guidelines for teledentistry as per the date of recording this video. But I did came across the guidelines given by Medical Council of India on 25th March 2020. While reading a newspaper article in Hindustan Times, I came to know that MCI was working on such guidelines since long, but this coronavirus made them work more and release these guidelines before they were planning it to do it. So these were the guidelines which were in the name of Telemedicine Practice Guidelines. It's a 48-page document which I went through, and I decided that I will share important points which I came across while reading this lengthy document. A judgment by the Honorable High Court of Bombay in 2018 was passed against the doctors, which created lot of uncertainty about the place and legitimacy of telemedicine in India because no appropriate framework existed. This judgment actually finds a mention in the guideline as well. So, guidelines for telecommunication in dental and medical world is the need of the hour, as it's very suitable by being safe, effective and valuable in present COVID era. It also gives a legal protection to both patients and doctors by helping us in better record keeping. However, this mode can be abused and does has few risks, drawbacks and limitations. MCI mentions that they will be coming up with mandatory training courses which all the doctors which intend to practice telemedicine will have to go through it. And once this notification of this course come out, it will be mandatory to get this course done within 3 years of its notification. However, in the interim period till they come up with such courses, they have advised practitioners to follow the guidelines mentioned in the document. Talking about what tools in telemedicine can be used, MCI suggests all the possible tools which are suitable for the benefit of the patient can be used, like mobile or landline, various digital platforms like Kiwi Health, Practo, etc. and obviously our favorite chat-based applications as well, like WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. They have specifically mentioned regarding emergency consultations. It says that avoid if in-person consult is available, and in case you are doing a telemedicine or telecommunication with an emergency patient, limit it to first aid, life-saving measures and counseling, and advise a proper referral. If you have seen my other videos, I have specifically mentioned that what kind of procedures the DCI considers as emergency dental procedures. This document is divided into 7 headings. starting with context, identification of both the patient and the registered medical practitioner, modes of communication which can be used, consent in telemedicine, type of consultation, patient evaluation and management. I have not covered all the 7 elements. I have just chose important points from few of these elements which I will be discussing henceforth. So first to be discussed is identification of both the patient and the doctor. The doctor has to identify and confirm the credentials with contact details and other measures to know whether the patient is a legitimate patient or not. In case the patient is minor, the age mentioned for minor patient is age 16 in this document, not 18. So if the patient is minor, an adult person has to accompany in that telemedicine appointment. A doctor should also begin any telecommunication telling his name and qualification first, and whatever the material, the prescription will be passed on to the patient should have his registration number and contact details. So because identification is an important part in telemedicine, MCI suggests that the video mode of telemedicine which be much better. Talking about the other modes of telemedicine discussed in this document, MCI prefers real-time consultation over other asynchronous modes. By asynchronous modes means that both the patient and doctor are not interacting at the same time, like leaving an email, leaving an SMS and waiting for the doctor to reply whenever they log in their email account will be an asynchronous type of communication. So MCI suggests using voice interactions over email and text, especially for performing a diagnosis. However, in the end, it leaves on the judgment of the practitioner to decide the best suitable mode. There are two types of patient consents which needs to be obtained. The consent is considered to be implied consent if the patient starts or contacts the doctor for a telecommunication. It's the same way how an implied consent is considered if the patient walks in for an in-person OPD. However, if a health worker, a registered medical practitioner or a caregiver is initiating a telemedicine consultation, an explicit consent from the patient has to be obtained. And this consent has to be through an email, text or audio or video message. Exchange of information for patient evaluation is another important thing which is discussed. It advises doctors not to proceed if the doctor feels that the information received from the patient is inadequate, or if the doctor has advised any laboratory or radiological test to the patient. In such scenario, once you have advised investigation and you are waiting for the investigation to come, the consultation is considered to be paused. Or if the doctor considers that without physical examination he won't be able to give even a provisional diagnosis, so again doctor is advised not to proceed for further telecommunication till in-person physical examination can be done. But whatever said and done, we have to maintain all the records of whatever step we have left our communication to. Coming to classification, how do you classify the type of consultation? According to the purpose, it is classified into two ways, and it is very important because it helps in deciding that which type of drugs which we can give in a particular type of consultation. So the first is the first consult. It is when the patient has consulted for you for the first time or within 6 months of the first consultation for the same problem. However, if the same doctor is consulted by the same patient for a different health condition, suppose first it was dental caries, then it became a periodontitis, then it won't be considered as a first consult. or if the doctor doesn't has records or doesn't recalls the previous consult which patient is claiming to have. Again, this will be considered as a first consult, and if not, it is a follow-up visit. But remember, all follow-ups are done for the same patient with the same doctor for the same disease. Coming to patient management. Patient management through telemedicine is divided into three parts. We can manage the patient by three ways. First is health education, by promoting health and disease prevention messages. The second is counseling. In counseling, we give specific do's and don'ts to a patient for their specific problem, like specific instructions how to prevent, what dental caries, what to do, what not to do to prevent dental caries. And the last part of the patient management, which is very important, is prescribing medicines. I'll be dealing about this in little detail. Prescribing medicine entails the same professional accountability with the doctor as in you are doing in in-person consult, and it cannot be done. It means you cannot prescribe medicine without a provisional, if not a final diagnosis. So you have to reach a provisional diagnosis, mention it, and then only go for prescribing medicines. Talking about the categories of medicine which we can prescribe, they are divided into four categories. The first one is list O. It contains safe medicines which can be given through any mode, through text, voice, or video call. They mostly contains over-the-counter drugs like paracetamol, ORS, multivitamin like iron, folic acid tablets. Or list O category can change in specific conditions of emergencies, endemic or epidemics. Like it gives an example, suppose an area has an endemic malaria, so anti-malarial drugs can be categorized into list O. I don't feel that any dental drug would ever come in this category. Coming to list A. List A drugs you can only prescribe in first consult or as a refill or follow-up of first consult, and these kind of drugs are usually low potential for abuse. The third category is list B, which can be given only on follow-ups or in person first consultation. Remember, list A is given in telephonic first consultation. List B drugs you cannot give in telephonic first consultation. List B drugs you can only give in follow-up telecommunication or in-person first visit. So there is a difference. They have also discussed the various drugs which will fall in all the four category. I'll just discuss the fourth category next. But I couldn't find examples from the dental world which I could put it here. I don't want to put unnecessary guesswork here, but yes, I couldn't find any dental related medicines except the paracetamol or a ciprofloxacin antibiotic. But those who are interested, they can go through annexure 1 of this document. And the fourth category is prohibited list. Again, dentists usually don't prescribe it, which contains schedule X, narcotic and psychotropic drugs. So this is the format given in annexure 2 of the document, which tells us that what we have to follow when we prescribe medicines even through telecommunications. Remember, many of times we are in habit of telling patients that go to pharmacy and make me talk directly to the pharmacist. Remember, if you are doing this, you have to obtain an explicit consent from the patient before doing it. Just breaking the given format in three parts. The first part contains the information about the doctor and the patient, which helps in ready recognition of both the parties. The second part contains mentioning diagnosis and provisional diagnosis, along with writing down the chief complaint, past history, investigation if prescribed, and future suggested references. And then the medicines come. Again, remember, we have to prescribe only the generic names. Trade names are not allowed. and the last part contains special instructions with an e-signature and stamp of the doctor. Coming to what duties and responsibilities we have as a doctor while performing teledentistry. First is protecting patient privacy and confidentiality is totally our responsibility. If we have some records, we have to maintain the privacy of the patient. However, if you are uploading such records on a digital platform and something goes wrong with the digital platform, the site gets hacked or there is a data breach, MCI won't hold us responsible for such a breach. Remember, if the patient is willing to travel to you and come for an in-person consultation and yet you are forcing him for a telecommunication, then it will be considered as a misconduct on the doctor's part. I'm not sure what this misconduct will hold in this COVID era, but yes, I've tried just reproducing what was given in the document. And as advertising our in-person practice is not allowed, same way soliciting patients through advertisement for telemedicine is again not permitted as per this document. Coming to the very important talked about feature is the consultation fee. MCI says that you can receive the fee in the same way as you do in-person consultation, but however you have to give receipt and invoice for the same. Record keeping again becomes very important. We have to maintain records of all the prescription given, all the logs and the record of telemedicine interactions done. Few points which I came across in the document, I couldn't put it in a desired category. I will be just discussing in nutshell in this section. First is, remember, MCI has left it on our professional judgment whether to call this person as in-person consult or not. It's the doctor who also decides the best mode of the communication, whether it should be audio, video or on call or chat based. Both doctor and patients have the right to stop the telecommunication at any stage. And suppose if we are asking our colleague or a super specialist for a problem of the patient who has come to us, and then we are passing on the information gathered from that second doctor to the patient who has contacted us, it's us, the first doctor, which still remains responsible for the treatment and the recommendations made. You cannot hold the doctor which we have consulted through our route responsible for the treatment we are giving to the patient after consulting him. Use of artificial intelligence and machine learning platforms solely are not allowed by MCI. MCI says that doctors can take help of such platforms, but in the end it's the registered medical practitioner who has to prescribe the medicine to the patient. Something goes wrong, some data breach happens, or a digital platform does some unethical work, then the MCI will blacklist such platforms, and then a doctor is not supposed to use such platforms, and the doctor is expected to keep information of such blacklisted platforms. So I think after listening this small video you will get a fair idea that what things you can apply in teledentistry and keep ourselves safe in this era of corona and lawsuits. Thank you. Dhanyavad.